All right, guys, this is Northwest Central coming back at you on another YouTube video. And we are at July 4th Eve at this point. There's a couple of Florida State targets that I'm going to be talking about today in terms of just making their decisions. Now, granted, that this does not include some of the other targets that we have, like, Jonathan Daniels, Makai Danzy, Jalewis Solomon, Ty Hilton. I mean, there's a couple of guys out there that have not been named for their date or time yet that they're going to be deciding. Those guys could be able to pop during this time on 4th of July, but we'll kind of see how it factors out. But I do have four prospects that I'm going to be targeting for today's video in terms of just talking about them, what their decisions are, and also my pick for who they're going to be able to decide. Like I said, I do not rule anything else out about their decisions or anything. It is completely up to them. But I surely hope that one of these guys can be able to come to Florida State and make an instant impact right away. But before we get into the video, please be sure to follow my social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram. I do a lot of content over there. So if you have missed any of my YouTube videos and just kind of want a quicker source to go to, maybe my Instagram and Twitter could be a source for you. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel as well. Leave a like for this video today, as I'm trying to get out as much content as I can for Florida State fans. And also comment your thoughts on some of my picks for today. Maybe if you think somebody's going to trend elsewhere, or maybe even come to Florida State, just let me know in the comments. But let's go ahead and get straight into it. We're going to go ahead and start off with four-star receiver Elijah Moore out of the Maryland area. This is a receiver that Florida State's been on for quite some time. He basically got offered around 8th grade at this point. The staff really took a good chance on him. And at that point, he talked about how he officially visited during the 23rd. And he kind of told media members and said, okay, we're going to be able to go to it and say Florida State is going to be our number one school at this point. Ohio State is kind of that second team that he mentioned as making a decision. All things kind of point towards Florida State being in that commanding lead. And I mean, that doesn't really change anything. Florida State was able to get four receivers committed to their class in Camden Fryer, BJ Gibson, TJ Abrams, and also Wayne McCoy. And those four receivers, specifically with Fryer and also Gibson, they have already officially visited Florida State, and Abrams has as well. But the problem is his commitment with Florida and Texas A&M, those schools are still kind of out to recruit him, and he's still kind of listening to the idea. Now it's a recruiting process. We have to go through it, and we have to remember that these are teenagers. They are making the biggest decision of their lives in terms of making a college decision. So we have to kind of give them some space as we go through. Wayne McCoy did not officially visit Florida State. He did officially visit UCF earlier, and we'll talk about another prospect that may be trending in their direction a little bit later on. But McCoy is one of those speedster South Florida receivers that I think Florida State could really, really use in this next coming class. And hopefully in year 2 or year 3, he can really contribute in a huge manner. But I do think that Fryer and Gibson are pretty much solid in what they bring to the table right now for Florida State and in their commitments. But they want to add more receivers, and they have not shied away from that. And Moore is one of those guys that I think this is a longstanding relationship they've wanted to keep for quite some time. Now, the biggest thing is he is 6'3", about 190 pounds, and Florida State does not have a receiver that's committed to this class that's over 6 foot tall. So when you look at it, he's got that size, he's got versatility to play on the slot as well as on the outside, a big body receiver that can high point the football at a very high level. Will relationships kind of play a factor in what he's going to choose, whether it be Ohio State or whether it be Florida State? In my opinion, I definitely think that Florida State has kind of come on later in this recruitment. They've really pushed hard here as we've gone through, and I think he ends up picking Florida State, as some of the crystal balls have already projected for him so far. I definitely think that this is a weapon that Florida State can be able to use in their system. Let's go ahead and get over to another receiver and four-star wide receiver, James Madison. He also visited during this time and was actually a high priority target for Florida State for quite some time from St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. This is a decision that he's going to be making between Missouri and Florida State. I already know what y'all are going to say with this. Why are we losing recruitments, or why are we even in a recruitment with Missouri? This should be a no-brainer. Everything should kind of fall into Florida State's place. Well, not so fast. He is actually originally from Kansas City, Missouri, and this is a recruitment that you're just going to have to monitor, because it kind of looks to believe that, considering that he has Florida State and Missouri in his top two, that he's kind of considering going back home and playing. I mean, they have Luther Burden that's over there, a slot receiver, 5'11". He's very productive. Was a 5-star receiver coming out of the 22 class. Can he be able to take that next step as a wide receiver and then have Madison right next to him on the outside? that would be pretty deadly, especially for a Missouri offense that's trying to find its way in the SEC, considering you can go back home, being closer to family. But, with Moore kind of being that 6'3", 190 receiver, and then also Madison being that 6'3" receiver as well, is it kind of redundant to recruit both of those prospects together? Brian Dugans, he's done a tremendous job so far in expanding the board. We talked about it before with some of the receivers he already has in the fold. But, he's going after guys like five-star receiver Cam Coleman, JoJo Trader. There's a lot of other guys that I think he could be able to go to. Maybe a Jeremiah Smith as well, an Ohio State commit. We'll just kind of have to see how it plays out. But I don't think they're going to just, sit there and wait for a JoJo Trader to kind of be in a situation where, I don't know if he's going to be taking this class. They're going to accept JoJo Trader, whether you believe it or not. Whether they have 6 wide receivers, 7 wide receivers, they're not going to turn him down. So that's the biggest thing going into that is, can they be able to do something like that and kind of get everything situated? I mean, that's a big factor in what brings to the table right now. But right now, I would definitely pick that James Madison is going to go to Missouri. I think he's going to stay in state. Maybe that might be a situation where Florida State can kind of get involved a little bit later. But I think the hometown kind of factor with everything, I think Missouri is recruiting him a little bit harder. But I do think he is a take for Florida State. And don't get it wrong, Croman Hawk actually said in his exit interview as well that he actually met with his family. His family was very nice. He had a great time with James Madison building that bond together. So don't think that this was a slouch by Florida State. I definitely think that this was a situation where Florida State can get definitely involved there. But if you have 5 receivers, kind of see what happens with Abram and McCoy. I think you can kind of go either way with that. Let's go ahead and get straight to another one. This is 4-star tight end Kylan Fox. This interesting thing about Kylan Fox is he's been crystal balled to Florida State for quite some time. And it's been a recruitment that they thought Florida State was in the lead for. They had 4 or 5 crystal balls predicted to Fox to go to Florida State at this point. Had visited campus many times, was great friends with a tight end that we had just gotten in Landon Thomas, 5-star from Georgia. And he kind of flipped back and forth. He was a Florida State committed to Georgia and then flipped back to Florida State. And basically, the position as a whole, with Chris Thompson being the tight ends coach there, I think it's very important because you have guys like Jaheim Bell and also Kyle Morlock, Biscuit, Jackson West, Preston Daniel. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I do think that this is an exciting room to be able to say the least. I mean, the coaching staff, they want to even add more talent in adding Fox and Thomas together. I think that just kind of speaks to what the tight end room is now becoming at this point. Mike Norvell always loves tight ends. He loves using 2 tight end sets in his offense, especially being able to block and also having them as pass catcher weapons. I think could be very important. Problem is, both of those guys have close friendships with one another. And, Kylan Fox actually did officially visit UCF on June the 2nd. So that is something to kind of monitor. Most of the media members that he had, they were just talking about how they were kind of important with everything. The visit was very important for him, family environment. I just think there's a lot of factors that are going into UCF at this point. You had a guy like Randy Pittman, who was a Florida State commit at one time, decommitted from Florida State and went over to UCF. He's doing pretty good things this offseason. Definitely could see both of those guys developing together as one. But, you have to kind of look at everything. I mean, Florida State had the last official visit in June 23rd of the weekend where it was just a massive group of people that they had so far. But can they be able to generate enough momentum? I think UCF pretty much had a good visit as soon as they were done with that June 2nd visit. All the confidence in the world was kind of going in their favor at this point, and now he's starting to get crystal ball to UCF. I think he's at 4 or 5 crystal ball predictions, so that is something to kind of monitor, and it is a little scary considering what Florida State brings to the table. And I definitely think this is kind of one that Florida State missed on, kind of. But I don't think it's quite necessarily a need because you think about a 5-star tight end at Landon Thomas. You're not missing a whole lot. Now, he is a pretty good superstar in this point, and Fox can high point the football very well, is an explosive tight end, kind of like a Jaleel Skinner. I think it's kind of that situation too. Pass catching, can almost be a wide receiver at that point, and does a really good job in the open field. But right now, I would definitely pick UCF. I think they're doing a really good job in terms of just getting talent onto their campus. And I definitely think that Florida State can probably maybe circle back around, but it's going to be really tough to kind of figure that one out. But the last one I'm going to discuss today is 3-star safety Radarius Morgan. And Radarius is actually a guy that is from Phoenix, Alabama, Central High School. They play a good amount of competition there, and he's actually teammates with five-star wide receiver Cameron Coleman, who actually discussed a little bit earlier about the wide receiver board. And I think this could actually be a way Florida State can get into the board. But you also have to think about this too. Morgan is a really, really good safety, sees the field very well, is electric in the open field whenever he's able to get kind of picks, sees the field very well, locates the football. I think he does a really nice job in tackling in space as well. This is a guy that I think Florida State really values. And you look at a guy like CJ Hurd that's already in the class, has been recruited by Marcus Woodson and has stayed through Sartain at this point. And I think this can be a situation where you can have two safeties that are really, really good. Maybe you might have a Julius Solomon that can transfer over from cornerback to safety. He's played a little bit of safety as well at high school, mainly a corner, but we'll kind of see how that kind of factors into it. But I mean, with Sartain getting, Ricky Knight the third as well on Saturday, can he be able to get another commit into this class? And this is kind of a late addition. I mean, Florida State only offered, I think it was March, in early March. They brought him on a visit, and then next thing you know, they were able to give him an offer. Then he officially visited on June 2nd. And a lot of times with these kids, whenever you're coming in June 2nd and you have so many more visits to go, and then you also look at him officially visiting Miami that June 23rd weekend. You didn't really think much of Florida State at that point. He was wearing the all-white uniform combination during his official visit, seemed to really enjoy the official visit. And Cincinnati was also the other school, as well as Auburn and some other ones as well. But just overall, I think Miami was a big factor in that one. Auburn was as well with being in state. We'll kind of see how it goes as Florida State goes through there. And can they be able to keep the state of Alabama prospect as he kind of continues and grows and develops? I think that may be wait and see. But I do think Florida State has a good chance in being able to land them. And I would pick Florida State as of right now. He's already got 3 or 4 crystal balls as of right now to Florida State. And I think it could really be a good factor in what they bring to the table so far. Just some closing thoughts as we go through everything. The coaching staff, they've done a high level of confidence in terms of bringing in prospects. They've had that confidence in terms of having fireworks in July. Mike Norvell actually alluded to it in his tweet. And I think 4th of July can actually be a wonderful experience. If they were to get 2 of the 4, I think that could be really good because you're able to get another safety in this class. And then you're also able to get a big body wide receiver that you're kind of missing. If they were able to get both of those prospects, Florida State would actually rank 13th in the 247 composite rankings. And I actually did a hypothetical originally with if Florida State were able to land all 4 of those guys, they would actually be 9th in the rankings. So I know that recruiting rankings don't really super much matter right now because Florida State is in a position where they have to come into this season with high expectations. They're trying to set a goal of getting to the ACC championship and maybe even getting to the playoffs. Florida State's got some high standards that they want to achieve this season and let recruits understand the process of what goes on at the university and continuing to work through those processes. While it's great to have a great recruiting rankings in July and into the August season here as we go through, you have to understand that Florida State is trying to play the waiting game in terms of getting the prospects they want, the people that they want to come to Florida State. I think it's very important for them to have the right fit. And I definitely think Florida State's doing a nice job right now in terms of getting those prospects in. And I couldn't be more excited to see how the future comes with some of those prospects that are coming in and possibly deciding later in the summer. Definitely with the Charles Lester coming at the end of the month, maybe even Kevin Levy that's coming in for June the 15th, going to be deciding. Hopefully he decides Florida State as well. But there's some guys out there that I think Florida State are really, really excited on, especially like Danzy and Daniels. I mean, the list goes on and on. I think Florida State's doing a nice job in recruiting some of those guys, and I definitely can't wait to see how they kind of finish up everything. But I really appreciate all the love and support so far. Be sure to hit the like button before you head out on my official visit primer that I've had today. Be sure to follow my socials as well, and I hope each and every one of you have a great rest of the day, and go Noles.